taking advantage of others. Narcissists often see people less as individuals and more like useful tools. The feelings of others don't really matter to a narcissist. I mean, does a hammer have feelings? Narcissists assess others for what function they can serve. A status boost, someone to vent to, an easy payday. Once that tool isn't useful or becomes a hassle, they often toss it aside. You see this with characters like Littlefinger in Game of Thrones. He's a master of manipulation, often cloaking his self-serving ambition in a veneer of helpful advice or shared secrets. He expertly plays people against each other, all while showing almost no genuine regard for the chaos or suffering he inflicts. In fact, to him, chaos is a ladder. In real life, you might know that friend who only pops up when they need something. A loan that they'll totally pay back, man. A ride, a place to crash for a couple of days. After that, they promptly disappear until their next emergency that desperately needs your resources. So, how do you protect yourself from this kind of thing? Firstly, be cautious if someone seems too good to be true or is overly charming initially, especially if they quickly follow with requests. Also, don't bank on getting much back. If you give, do it because you genuinely want to, and don't expect anything in return. Finally, get good at spotting common manipulation tricks like guilt tripping. Lacking empathy. This is an inability or unwillingness to recognize, understand, share, or respond appropriately to how others are feeling. They might seem cold or indifferent when someone else is happy or suffering. Imagine a chef who can read any recipe, perfectly understand the chemical interactions of the ingredients, and describe how a dish should taste, but when presented with that dish, they can't actually taste it. In other words, narcissists have cognitive empathy, but not emotional empathy. Think of Anton Chigurh in No Country for Old Men. He's a hitman who shows no remorse and kills with cold, detached indifference. Yet he clearly understands the terror he instills in people and even toys with it, like in the famous gas station scene where he puts a man's life to a coin toss. Chigurh gets the fear, but it doesn't make him show mercy. He continues on with an unwavering adherence to his own principles. For a real-life example, you might know a Joey. As his friend Jibby sobs over a heartbreaking breakup, Joey pats Jibby's shoulder and says, there. Oh, tragic. Anyway, did I tell you I got 10% off my new air fryer? The crispy Brussels sprouts are to die for. You simply must try my recipe when you're, less moist. So, how do you cope with someone who lacks empathy? Well, when communicating your needs, keep it factual and brief. Focus on their behavior and its effects, not appealing to their emotions. For example, when you interrupt me, I feel unheard. Also, don't keep trying to make them understand how you feel emotionally. It usually just leads to frustration. And remember, their lack of empathy isn't a reflection of whether you deserve empathy. It's a limitation that they have. A sense of entitlement. This is when someone consistently expects preferential treatment, or for people to just automatically do what they want. They truly believe they deserve special privileges. Their needs should be met without question, without owing anything in return, and that the usual rules don't apply to them. It's like they believe they're playing life with cheat codes that allow them to bypass the normal rules and have all their desires prioritized above everyone else's. When these assumed privileges are denied, it's a huge personal insult, and narcissists often become indignant or angry. Veruca Salt from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is a great example of this. I want a golden goose, Daddy, and I want it now. And Daddy complies. No questions asked about fairness or feasibility. Veruca, in this instance, isn't requesting, she's demanding, backed by the absolute certainty that her demands will be met. On social media, you see this with certain influencers requesting free luxury goods or services from businesses, offering exposure as payment, as if their follow account somehow makes this an obviously fair trade. So, how do we manage this sense of entitlement? Well, be clear and calm about your boundaries. For example, I understand you'd like X, but the policy here is Y. Also, expect them to push back or try to make you feel guilty, but also remember that your boundaries are important, so hold firm. Get comfortable saying no confidently. No can be a complete answer. And finally, don't get dragged into long arguments or over-explain. A simple reason is usually enough. There's no need to jade. A grandiose sense of self-importance. This is when someone has an exaggerated belief about their own achievements, talents, and overall significance. They expect red carpet treatment, feel superiority even if unearned, and genuinely think that their contributions are pure, solid gold, a cut above everyone else. Think of it as a massive, flashy tower, but one actually built on jelly. They keep adding shiny new decorations and blinding spotlights to distract everyone, even themselves, from how wobbly it is. One tiny gust of wind in the form of criticism, and it could all come crashing down. So they project rock-solid strength. Meanwhile, everyone else feels tiny in its shadow, unaware of its fragility. You've probably seen this in fiction. Gaston from Beauty and the Beast is a great example. He's convinced he's Mr. Perfect, best hunter, most handsome man, and therefore entitled to Belle's hand. Anyone not worshipping him gets brushed off. His brain can't compute rejection. So, how do you actually deal with this? First of all, don't pick a fight over how great they are. It's a losing battle and just makes them dig their heels in. Also, Also, go for neutral, vague replies, things like, I see, and interesting take. It shows you heard them without co-signing their ego trip. And super important, guard your own self-worth. Their need to be the best is their problem, not yours, requiring excessive admiration. So this one's about a narcissist's profound, constant need for attention, praise, compliments, just generally being told they're great. Their self-esteem is often shaky and leans heavily on this approval. If they don't get it, they can feel empty or deeply frustrated. Think of admiration as being like oxygen for the narcissist. They can't really survive without it. This is because their self-worth isn't internally generated. It's like a leaky tire that constantly needs pumping up with external praise, validation, and attention. Without a steady flow, a narcissist will deflate, feeling insignificant, which is why they're so driven to seek these things out. An example of this is Gilderoy Lockhart from Harry Potter. He's always looking for praise, his picture is everywhere, and his public image is built on made-up, heroic stories just so people will keep admiring him. In real life, you might know a Dom. After a presentation that was, shall we say, unmemorable, he'll fish with a dramatic, "Oh, I was terrible, wasn't I?" If the chants of, no, you're a genius, Dom," don't immediately erupt, Dom might spend the rest of the day accidentally dropping his stapler very loudly every time someone else gets praised, muttering about unseen brilliance. So how do you handle this constant need for admiration? Well, if someone does something well and it's appropriate, feel free to give a specific, honest compliment. A small, true bit of praise can sometimes help. Just don't overdo the flattery. You could also try the grey rock method. Basically, become as boring and unresponsive as a rock when a narcissist is fishing for too much praise. Finally, understand that this non-stop need for praise usually comes from a deep inner emptiness, and it's not up to you to fix that.